Hi, I'm Katie Todd, and today's episode is called Reflections, How the World Really Works. It's interesting, but whenever I look at what's happening in the world around me, I'm becoming more and more aware of how it's reflecting what's going on within me. I believe that our relationship with ourselves is our most important lesson to learn how to love and appreciate ourselves. And any place in our relationship with ourselves where we are judgmental, critical, not loving ourselves, even self-destructive, and we all are in some places, it gets reflected to us. And it's like all the people out there that we meet, they're characters in our play, they're the cast, and they're showing us different aspects of ourselves. Now this helps us to take responsibility for what we react to and what hurts us, and to realise that it's actually a gift, bringing to our attention something that we need to fix within ourselves. And I want to give you an example of this so that it makes more sense. I have a lovely young client who comes to see me. Now he's got the master-slave archetype, which we've talked about before, and he's always feeling like he's got to prove himself. He's always achieving and talking about how he's got to do this and that. He never feels like he's enough though. He's always feeling that he lacks somehow. He comes from the Indian culture, and it can be very cultural, some of these things, where you feel like you've got to earn love, you've got to earn approval. He projects this need to earn approval on his mum and says, oh, my mum expects me to do this, or my mum expects me to do that, and it's not fair, and I should just be able to be myself. But actually, it's how he feels about himself. Have you ever noticed that sometimes people will say things to you and you're really reactive? How could they say that to me? That really hurts me. But what they're doing is they're picking up on the energy around you, and they're tuning into that part of you who believes that very thing. There's a part of you that believes that or says that to yourself if you are reactive to it in another. This young man was telling me about how he really would love to have a partner. He'd love to have a girlfriend. And there was a girl he caught his eye. I said, oh yeah, tell me about her. Well, they're great friends. They often go shopping together. I said, oh, that sounds good. And he said, yeah, she was wanting to know what I was doing. And he said, I do media studies. And she goes, oh, that's not very good. Do you make much money doing media studies? And he said, well, no, not that much. He said, but I'm thinking of changing to psychology. She goes, oh, is that right? Well, does that make more money? He said, well, I think if you're a clinical psychologist, you can make a lot of money, and you could charge like $220 an hour or something. She goes, that would be really good. That would be really good. So he changed his course and is now doing psychology. This young lady loved to shop. She was very, very self-conscious about her body, very worried that it wasn't exactly right, and was always asking for compliments and reassurances about what she looked like. For her, life was all about what you looked like, what clothes she wore. She had to buy the latest fashions, she had to have the right figure, she had to try and look the right way, and she had to marry well. She could only be interested in someone who could provide for her in the way that she would like to become accustomed. Now, this was ringing warning bells for me. This is not true love here. And he said, oh, I just think about her all the time. I tried to start a relationship with her a little while ago, and she said, no, I'm not interested in you that way. So I'm working really hard, and I'm learning guitar, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing the psychology, and we're getting on really well, so I thought I might try again in a little while. My advice to him was, don't go there. This is such a conditional relationship. This young lady is a princess, and she does not feel good about herself. She is very insecure about herself, and she is going to camouflage it until she does some work by trying to have the external image say, I am this. She actually has no idea who she is, and I find that very sad. I said to him, do you think that she could reflect somehow your relationship with yourself? Do you have a conditional relationship with yourself? He said, well, absolutely. I only feel good enough if I'm achieving well. I have to become a clinical psychologist, or I'm nobody. I have to earn this much money. I have to be that successful. And my parents would expect this of me. So he could see that in her, she was the exact mirror, the exact reflection of how he was with himself. If he was to have a relationship with her, it would be doomed, it would be miserable, because there is no genuine love. She doesn't know herself. He doesn't know himself. They are exactly the same. They are both lost. and they're both trying to prove that they are worthy of love. There is nothing about love here, but we are attracted on some level to those who mirror ourselves. So I think he has worked out now that he should not go there. Interestingly, just as a footnote, he's got exams and assignments, final assessments coming up, and he's putting himself under a lot of pressure because those who feel like they have to prove they're lovable and keep achieving, they're always terrified of failure, terrified of not meeting the mark, and inside they already feel like they've not made the mark. So he said, I think I just can't cope with this pressure anymore, and I get like this at the end of every year. I think I might take 6 months off next year and I'll just study I'll just play guitar and do some yoga and get fit and then see if I feel better about studying after that. He said, but my mum won't approve of that. You know, she's awful. She'll just expect that I should go and study. And I said, tell me, if you take 6 months off, how will you feel about yourself? And he stopped for a moment and said, I'd feel like I was a failure. I'd feel like I hadn't reached my potential and that I was opting out somehow. And I said, and if Mum were to suggest perhaps you should be studying, do you think you would react to Mum? He said, oh, I'd be furious with her. I'd be so angry with her. But actually she'd just be reflecting what I felt about myself and the judgment I had about myself about dropping out. So he realised all the pressure he was feeling was the pressure and fear of failure came from himself. And if he just got on quietly and did a bit each day, he'll get there. He's not interested in clinical psychology at all. He'd actually like to do counselling psychology. So let's hope he gets it and he loves himself enough to go and do what he really wants to do. And then he can attract a partner who'll really appreciate him for who he is.